welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Let's talk about One Piece, specifically from the Water 7 saga. Today I will be discussing the Long Ring Long Land arc and the Water 7 arc. I have not yet read the Enies Lobby arc or the post Enies Lobby arc, so please do keep your comments spoiler free for those arcs. I do realize that it is a little bit odd to pause midway, but I have read enough that I have so many thoughts, I just want to get them out, and this is more manageable for me, so I hope you'll forgive me for doing it this way. And this will also allow me to make some predictions for the second half of the Water 7 saga, which I'm really thoroughly enjoying. I have so much to say. That's why I decided just go ahead, let's make this video now. And I will give you, of course, my thoughts when I finish the Water 7 saga. I'm on the edge of my seat, actually, at this point, wanting to finish the saga as a whole. When I thought ahead that, well, we'll just do a certain number of chapters. That'll make it more manageable. And I'm still going to stick with that plan, but I do want to just jump ahead now. That said, I just have a lot to say here. So let's begin with the first of these arcs, and that is the Long Ring Long Land arc. And we begin with a quick little appearance of Doflamingo, one of those pirate lords that everybody is terrified of, making an example of Bellamy. Poor Bellamy. I didn't feel much sorry for him earlier because he was kind of a bully that Luffy put in his place. But here he is being humiliated by Doflamingo. And this seems to be a bit of a darker tone here, that this is an age of ruthlessness, an age of power. The stakes seem to have been raised. I'm taking this as a signal here. The stakes are up now, and the story is going to get more serious. That said, the first arc here is not the most serious arc. The Long Ring Long Road Land, that is, arc is not the most serious of the arcs in One Piece so far. And I gather that there is some, talk about some of the characters, Foxy, for example, being somewhat of not a fan favorite. I do have some things to say about Foxy, so bear with me. But before we meet Foxy, of course, the Straw Hats have returned from Skypiea, a place of dreams, a land of dreams. And of course, this is the huge theme in One Piece, pursuing one's dreams. There's a wonderful feeling here. I love how Oda sets us up here with this feeling of family, this feeling of oneness, this feeling of having accomplished something, and also being in the midst of that beautiful pursuit of dream. And they are going to invest in their ship, the symbol of their family, the symbol of the Straw Hats, the Going Merry. They're going to invest in her, and they need a carpenter. Luffy declares, hey, we need a carpenter, and that is most true. And as far as carpenters go, I'm going to skip ahead just for a moment here because we do meet a lot of shipwrights in the Water 7 arc later. Including, of course, Polly and Iceberg and Frankie, all of them being very interesting characters of one sort or another. So, of course, I feel like Luffy usually gets what he wants when it comes to finding a member of his crew, and I have not yet seen if this is actually going to happen or not, but I do believe that one of these shipwrights is going to end up a Straw Hat. That's a prediction. That is a prediction. And I did have one comment that sort of gave it away a little bit, I think, inadvertently. Not anything on purpose, but I do think that I might have gotten a little bit of a hint. But I had already decided on which of these candidates I thought was going to be the one that ends up with the Straw Hats as their ship carpenter. So I'm going to go, thinking about this, Polly would be a good candidate, but his loyalty to Iceberg and to Water 7 is absolute. So he would have been a good one, but I think that he's going to want to stay in his home and rebuild and make it better. Iceberg himself would be an interesting candidate as well, but he is the mayor. He's too important to Water 7. And that leaves Frankie, who is, yes, he's something of an outsider in a way, yes, to Water 7. He's made himself so, I suppose, by being a bit of an outlaw. But he's also a very accomplished shipwright and very quirky. And would he be a good member of the Straw Hats? I'm thinking yes. I think that we're going to have Frankie becoming the carpenter for the Straw Hats. That's a prediction that I made, and like I said, I think one comment sort of inadvertently clued me in that I might be right, but who knows? I might be wrong. I'm actually not 100% sure, so let us see. But anyway, that fun aside of predicting who's going to be the carpenter for the Straw Hats, we do go to Long Ring Long Land, and we meet there Tanjit and also Sherry. And this sets up a beautiful little theme here of friendship and loyalty, because Sherry waits all those years for Tanjit when all his other villagers have moved on to the next island. So I thought that was a beautiful little thing, that loyalty is something that we see again and again and again in One Piece. It is central. It is part of the heart of this story, the loyalty and the friendship. And it's beautifully done here. I love that relationship between horse and man there. And it is also relevant because we are setting up some really important things in terms of friendship and family and all of that. And this little arc, as quirky as it is, I think it does have some foreshadowing in it. And I like the way that Oda is doing this. This is not my favorite arc necessarily, but I do see that Oda is doing something in terms of setting up Water 7 and possibly Enies Lobby later on. So let's see, but I do feel like this arc might be easy to overlook what Oda is doing in terms of this foreshadowing. But specifically, let's talk about Foxy. Now, I gather from some comments that Foxy is not the most popular character, that some people do love Foxy, some don't. There's a bit of a divisive character, perhaps. But I will say that I think, while he's not a favorite for me among any of the characters I've met or even among the villains, I do think he is an effective character. He's an effective villain. He does his job well. And also, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment, but also I think that he's kind of quirky, he's interesting in a way, annoying for sure. His need for validation is kind of pathetic. He does have that streak in him where he seems to need the validation, the praise, and all that. And when it is a bit comical when Luffy, of course, being Luffy, just calls it as he sees it, and it's sort of taken as a very distressing insult by Foxy. But so he's goofy. It's goofy. But I also think that as a villain, it's a very clever touch on Oda's part, because what is Foxy's threat to the Straw Hats? The threat is he's going to take away one of them, a member of their family, a member of their crew. And this is something that at this point, we are devoted to the Straw Hats. We love them. They're family, okay? Imagine if someone were going to come along and take one of your family members. Okay, maybe you don't have, maybe your sibling, you'd be okay with losing a sibling. I don't know. But for the most part, most of us are going to feel that as a very visceral kind of threat. And I think on some level, we feel that Foxy's intention to take away one of their crew, or even more than one, we see that as a threat. We see what happens with that when they encounter another ship on the high seas, and they are totally dysfunctional, because their family has been broken by this ruthless pirate, Foxy. That's a very real threat. We feel that threat to our family in a way. And I feel like that maybe on even a subconscious level might be a reason why people don't like Foxy, because we don't like the idea of him taking away one of our beloved Straw Hats and breaking up the family. And this is really important foreshadowing, because later on, as you probably all know, Water 7 presents all kinds of threats to the family and some dysfunction and fighting within, rifts that occur. So I do feel like this is a clever bit of storytelling on Oda's part, giving us this threat to the family early on in this kind of goofy, sort of fun arc. But there's some serious hints at something that he's picking up for sure in Water 7. And the Davy back contest, there were some nice moments, I thought, with the 3 contests. I especially did like Zoro and Sanji quarreling as usual, but when things get serious, when the stuff hits the fan, the two of them do work together. And I love that moment when they finally all right, we got to do this together. And in the process, they do save Chopper. And also I have to shout out to Nami for her role in getting Zoro and Sanji to work together. Basically, neither one of them wants to wear the goofy hat with the ball on top, and they're fighting over that. And finally, Nami says, "Hey, Sanji, you look good in that hat." You look good with the ball. And then Sanji, of course, is like, oh, yes, suddenly he likes wearing the hat. And then that's kind of a funny part. I like that Nami just sort of coldly manipulates Sanji that way. And we do see Nami step up several times during the Davy back contest, being kind of ruthless but very intelligent. And I like her role there a lot. And she does show a lot of humanity later on, too, which I think is very important. But her just sort of cold, calculated manipulation of Sanji in his vulnerable place. The dating back does show us the vulnerabilities of the Straw Hats. You know, Luffy is tempted by the food, and Zoro is tempted by the booze, and Sanji is tempted by the ladies. And that's kind of a, sort of annoying part of Sanji's character, frankly. But I do love that moment when you have Nami using that in order to get him motivated, to get him going. And of course, when the two of them do work together to defeat their foes, it's a really great One Piece moment. So I also love how Chopper is the member of the crew who is taken away temporarily, and we feel the threat to the family there. I think it's a very clever touch on Oda's part to make it Chopper, especially in his cute little form, because we do feel that he's the most vulnerable that way. And it's like somebody taking your child away. It just feels awful that Chopper has been taken from the others. And we feel Chopper's pain, and there's a crisis moment there. And of course, he's weeping, and Zoro is telling him to man up and, and all of that. But having him return in that moment when Nami had pointed out, hey, we could take their captain, and this contest is over. But Luffy goes with his heart. He goes with his heart, as always, and he brings Chopper back to the family, and I love that moment. It's just beautiful. Great One Piece moment. So great. There's some really, good stuff that happens during this arc, but there is also some setup in retrospect, some setup for the breaking of the fellowship that is going to happen in Water 7. So yeah, I do feel that also Luffy has his moment there during his fight, during the Davy back fight between Luffy and Foxy. I think it's cool that he finds the will to defeat Foxy, and it's all about not losing a member of his family, a member of his crew. That's what motivates him in that moment. I also love that Luffy gets a kind of a clever moment by using the mirror when he holds up the mirror to Foxy, and he thereby outwits Foxy by using his own slow power against him. So that was really a great little moment too for Luffy, using his brains as well as his brawn. And I just thought that was kind of fun. There was a lot of goofiness in this arc. And the humiliation in the end for Foxy and his crew is that he has to put Luffy's art up on his sail, which replaces their own sail. But there's some importance to symbolism. We all know this, that the pirate flags are not just a cloth with something written on them. It is actually, it speaks to the heart of who they are and their identity and all that. So it's definitely more than just a slap on the wrist for Foxy and his crew. But the real serious thing in this particular arc, in the Long Ring Long Land arc, happens at the end. And this is where I feel like we get back to that, this is an age of ruthlessness. The stakes are raised. We have Aokiji showing up. And Aokiji is one of the big shots. He's one of the big guns you don't want to get in his range at all. And he threatens the unity of the Straw Hats by targeting Robin. And this is definitely setting up Water 7. And he is very dangerous, very powerful. He also gives us a sense of the mystery of Robin's past. Very important here. And even I haven't really fully figured that out, having just read the first half of this saga. But I feel like we're getting more and more of that. But this is definitely being set up here by the appearance of Aokiji. Also, a little hint there, I thought that was interesting about Luffy's grandfather. We keep getting little things dropped about Luffy's family. I mean, we met Ace earlier, and there have been some allusions with the middle initial and stuff like that, possible connections to various important figures here that I've talked about before. But yeah, the first time I think that a grandfather has been mentioned, so that's something to look out for, I think. Just Luffy and his loyalty to Robin as part of his family, as part of his crew. That's what saves them, their loyalty to each other in this moment. Luffy essentially outwits Aokiji by making it something between him the two of them, and I thought that was a great little touch as well. But this particular arc, as goofy and silly as it is, it does end on a serious note with Robin definitely conveying a sense of being haunted, a sense of dread, a sense that, oh, my family is in danger here. What do I do? And now for the Water 7 arc itself. It begins with a bit of the fun and the quirky after we encounter a giant traumatized frog called Yokozuna. And the Straw Hats just about have a close encounter with the Puffing Tom. And they also get directions from Kokoro, Chimney, and Gonbi, the rabbit that thinks it's a cat. And I love that it says meow. But they do resolve to follow up in terms of getting the Going Merry getting going again. So I really like that. They're home. They know that they need to fix this ship of theirs, the symbol of their unity and their family. It is under threat here. Very significant for the overarching theme of this arc, I think, as well. So they head to Water 7, and we see the crew together in this moment of promise, this moment of family, and a smile on Robin's face. And I do feel a little bit of worry when I see that panel as well, I have to say. Water 7 itself turns out to be modeled in some ways after Venice, which I thought was very interesting and clever on Oda's part. Because he does weave in some of the ecological issues, and these are made much more dramatic, of course. This is One Piece, right? But you do have the problem in Venice of the sinking of the city and rising sea levels, climate change, etc. So I thought that was an interesting touch, which I felt that Oda made it kind of symbolic in a very cool moment later on in Water 7, where he uses that environmental threat as a symbol for the vast threat that is coming for the Straw Hats. I thought that was really clever. We'll talk about that moment later. But we do meet the Galley Law crew here. You've got Lucci and Polly and all those guys. They are dedicated shipwrights. They are craftsmen. They are brilliant at what they do, and they are not to be trifled with. We learned that very early. We get to see that. They also seem like a very tight-knit family, right? But as we will find out, and this is a recurring theme here, betrayal, dissension lurk amidst them. And this is, I think, in some ways, paralleling the disunity that we're about to see among the Straw Hats. So friends in this arc, we see friends becoming foes, we see foes becoming friends, and I think there's some really cool exploration of all of this and how we relate to people and how things can turn when we get a new perspective on a particular individual, someone who thinks that they're our enemy, but then they see a common connection, a common goal, and suddenly we're working together. So we'll talk about a few of these moments, but I thought this was a really cool thing that Oda does here. We also meet this mystery figure that Robin encounters and just whispers the very dreadful name CP9. And we immediately see this change in Robin, and the whole thing about her past haunting her comes to the fore here. But we also see Iceberg, the beloved mayor and president of the Galila Company. And unfortunately, when they do finally get to request help from Galila, it's Kaku, I think is the name of the one, who declares that the Going Merry is too derelict to fix. It has a broken keel. And this introduces a real crisis, not just for the ship itself, but also for the crew, for the family, for the Straw Hats. And here we are exploring loyalty to family. And with the Going Merry, I've been reading it in there as Merry Go, but I know most people know it as the Going Merry. So I might slip occasionally. But whatever you call it, the Going Merry is a symbol of family. And of course, Usopp is the character who is most affected by this tragic news about the loss of their home, about the loss of their almost fellow Straw Hat here. I love what happens with Usopp here. When the Frankie family steals the Straw Hat's money from Usopp, beating him up, his sense of inferiority really kicks in, and it becomes part of his character arc here. Like, here I am among these overpowered people. Who am I? I'm in over my head. What do I contribute to this family? And all he has is his loyalty. in this moment to the going merry and his family. And there's a vast threat to that at the moment. But you do see initially a really beautiful moment with others stepping up to defend Usopp, including Nami. You would think Nami would be really upset about the loss of that money, but it's Usopp that she thinks of first. This is family. They come together. I thought that was a great Nami moment, a real moment of humanity for her. And also, of course, the others, Luffy and Sanji and Zoro, and of course, Chopper's there as well. They go in to defend their brother. When the outsiders harm one of their own, they step up. So the watch out Frankie family, okay? But we do see this unity of the Straw Hats. We see the cracks in it because of the fate of the Going Merry and Luffy's decision to give up on the Going Merry, which Usopp he cannot accept this. He holds on to, even when the situation is seemingly hopeless. This is a theme in One Piece for sure. He holds on. And maybe it's because of his insecurity. Maybe it's because of his guilt over losing that money and not having it to repair the ship. Or maybe it's his inability to let go. But whatever it might be, it puts him against Luffy. And we see a major crisis. Not really much of a contest here. Yeah, Usopp does his best, but the outcome was a foregone conclusion. And I think the most poignant panel in this crisis is when we do see the Going Merry, and there's been water that's been splashed on the masthead, or not the masthead, but the figurehead, and the water running down it appears like tears, and we see that this is a lament for a family in crisis, and it's really a poignant moment I felt in this arc. And even Luffy himself is shaken by this encounter. He does not enjoy fighting Usopp at all. And it does come down to, though, abandoning the Going Merry and Usopp together. And Zoro kind of says it, I think, in a way that, as harsh as it might sound, he says, we can never return to this ship. And don't forget that the ship is a symbol of the family. And you've got this rift in the family now. In other words, we can't go back to what we were. We can't go back to the camaraderie, the ease with which we all laughed and got along and worked together. Something has happened that has created a change, and we can't be what we were. So it's a real moment of crisis because Robin also at this point is gone. You have the rift between Luffy and Usopp. Luffy being very broken about it, but ultimately Usopp being cast away along with the doomed Going Merry. And then, of course, you have the return of Frankie, who is initially going to avenge the outrage of having his home and his buddies, his people, the Frankie family, mauled by the Straw Hats. And I love how this is a character that I initially did not like. I did not enjoy Frankie very much. But gradually, Oda brought me around to really kind of loving this character for his goofiness, for his enthusiasm, for his just joy of doing something, like being a craftsman and doing it well. And also just love how he wears a Speedo everywhere. And Luffy calls him Speedo guy. I mean, this is so goofy and so much fun. But a great example in here of foe to friend. And it's just a favorite part of this arc for me is the developing relationship between Frankie and the Straw Hats. But you have some serious stuff going on too. The assassination attempt on Iceberg and Nico Robin being blamed, and she kind of is present for that. But the thing is, she's being coerced, and that kind of comes out gradually. We'll talk about that. But Luffy, he defends Robin. Again, this is family. He is loyal. So he defends her no matter what. Whatever, the public perception is one thing, but Luffy knows his sister. He knows Robin, and he's going to defend her from all of that. He refuses to bow to what everyone is saying. And then there's a cool moment when Luffy and Iceberg get together and come to an understanding. We begin to see that they are in the midst of much larger forces that are at play here, meaning the world government and CP9. And we begin to hear about this shady organization here. Yeah, it seems like they're in way over their heads here because some very powerful entities are coming along. You get more hints of that in the scene with Frankie and Kokoro in the bar together, where ironically, as they are discussing the existence of CP9, you only realize later that this is ironic, but they are being served by Bluno, who is of course one of the members of CP9. He's been incognito for all these years. But CP9, I got a sense right around this time, okay, this is scary. It's scary not only because of how powerful they might be, but also because they're on a mission for justice. And to me, there's nothing more frightening than people who think they know what is right and are willing to do whatever in order to implement their vision of what is right. That is scary. And we definitely have that here with this organization. And I think there's some really cool questioning of, okay, what is justice? Is it sort of utilitarian vision of justice? Hey, it's better that this woman dies than that other people have the risk of suffering or dying. So that's just too bad, you know. There is an argument there. So it's an interesting exploration, I think, on Oda's part of the issue of justice and what is it. And it's not that everybody who's on the side of the government, everybody who's on the side of the Marines and everything, they're not all evil. You know, there are examples of people who really believe that what we're doing is right, and there are some shadier people within those organizations too. But I thought that this is a really interesting exploration on the part of Oda here. What can be sacrificed in order for justice to be achieved? And if you go too far in sacrificing, is it then justice any longer? So yeah, I think and when does it become an excuse as well for seizing power and persecuting those that you just don't like? So really cool stuff here. More stuff on Robin. There's this emphasis on this darkness within her, but it has so much to do, I sense, with her past and what has been done to her. She tries to keep the Straw Hats away, and we realize later this is a sacrifice on her part. She is trying to keep them out of this whole mess. She is trying to preserve not just their lives, but to make the rest of the family okay. And that becomes more and more beautiful. You see when Sanji and Chopper encounter her, and she tries to tell them, go away, you know, but they remain loyal to her. They see something there. They know she's in distress. They know that this is not a voluntary thing, that there's something going on behind the scenes. And I love how clever Sanji is in this moment in his pursuit. Covert Sanji. I love it. Good stuff. So we see the Straw Hats remaining loyal for the most part, especially Luffy in terms of his loyalty to Robin, while Usopp shows his loyalty by remaining with the doomed Going Merry. And then we get CP9's attack, and this is pretty scary stuff here. They are after these plans for a terrible weapon that has something to do with Tom, the shipwright, the genius inventor, the fishman, and his apprentices. And we kind of get a lot of more revealed about what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with two massively destructive weapons. And the world government wants them both. They want that power. They want to make sure no one who is suspicious from their perspective gets either of these. But an entity that has both of them, now that's unlimited power, and that's scary. And I think that there's a perception that Tom has, as well as Iceberg to some degree, that having a different entity control one of these weapons and another one control the other one brings about at least some kind of stalemate. That brings about a kind of very uneasy peace, if you will, a Cold War, essentially. And I don't think this is accidental. I think this is actually, Oda is from Japan, the only country in the world to have suffered a nuclear attack. A couple of them, actually. So I feel like this exploration of super weapons and with immense destructive capacity, and the idea that one entity having them all is a very dangerous situation, and this is the world government here in this fictional world. The idea that a lesser evil would be to have one entity own one, another entity own another, so that there can be some kind of stalemate, perhaps. Of course, you have those like Iceberg who would rather not have them at all, right? So it's a really cool thing that I think Oda is exploring here through these massive weapons. I still don't understand entirely what they're. One is the Pluton, the ship, I think, that we're going to have possibly more and more about later on. But this super ship that is the ultimate weapon, and the other has to do with Robin and her ability to read the poneglyphs, and that gives access to some other weapon. So the world government wants it all, and that is kind of scary. Because does the world government want these things in order to protect the world, or does it want these things in order to control the world? And there may not be one simple answer to that. There may be entities within the world government that are about protection, and then others who are more about control. There is also a beautifully symbolic panel where you have a standoff between Robin and Iceberg, each pointing guns at the other. And I feel like that is just such a great symbolic moment of the stalemate that exists between the two weapons that they come to represent in that moment. Really brilliant scene on Oda's part. And of course, the fear here is domination. A very important theme in One Piece. One entity trying to dominate and control another. Whereas our friends, the Straw Hats, are all about freedom. Freedom to pursue your dreams and be who you want to be. So these things are about to clash. More really lovely moments of foe to friend occur when you have Polly and Luffy working together. You do get this betrayal, this terrible betrayal of one of the families in this story, the Galileo family, when finally it's revealed that Lucci and Kaku and Khalifa, as well as Bluno from the bar, have been all this time working incognito for CP9. And this is scary stuff. Again, the world government here, you have the enforcement of justice through power. And of course, they are going after Frankie as well, or Cutty Flam, as we learned what his actual name was. But first you have this encounter between CP9 and the Straw Hats. And you know that this first encounter is not going to go well for the Straw Hats. This is a pattern in One Piece. It's a pattern in storytelling in general. The protagonists encounter some big, powerful entity, and the first time they encounter, they learn just how short they are, just how overmatched they are. And of course, they have to work harder to get to a point where they can take on that entity. So I did not expect this to go well, and indeed it did not for the Straw Hats. But I also think it's very interesting that Luffy in this moment, you see how much he despises betrayal. Betrayal of the sort that Lucci and the others have essentially committed by working with these people, the other members of the shipwrights, all these years, and then stabbing them in the back that way. So that is something that does not sit well with Luffy at all. And even when Robin stays with CP9, Luffy does not believe her protestations that she is not worth saving. So that is something I love about him, his undying loyalty in that case. But CP9 has some serious powers, and even Luffy is very much overmatched. These 6 powers, in fact. There's 6 powers. Also some devil fruit among them. So yeah, they soundly defeat the Straw Hats and leave a lot of destruction, all in the name of justice. You also have Frankie and Usopp, and some really cool moments there where, again, I'm really re-envisioning Frankie because of his sympathy for Usopp here. You see a different side of him. You feel that he understands Usopp's pain here, and he tries to help in his own way, a bit rough, but he does try to help Usopp see, hey, I'm sorry, your friend here, your ship, there's no way to salvage it. You need to let go. The Going Merry is doomed. And though Usopp refuses to see, literally shutting his eyes when he's underwater there, where Frankie has thrown him down, here, look, Usopp shuts his eyes. He does not want to see this, refuses to give up. I also thought that there was an interesting moment there with the Klabautermann, the little embodiment, I guess, of the ship. That was interesting how it repaired itself in order to give its last gasp to the crew. This is a ship. This can happen with a ship when it is much loved by its crew. And I love that little touch there. So it wants to give back as it can, and it has. It's gotten them to Water 7. But it is time, says everybody except Usopp, to give up on the Going Merry. Of course, this really nice moment is interrupted by CP9 when they come for Frankie. And we get this really great flashback, the flashback to Tom. And this provides a lot of important information as well as reinforcing a lot of these great themes. And we see a young Iceberg and Cutty Flam, and you see the five elders also, the dudes running the world government, and they want this weapon. So they send Spandex or Spandam or whatever the guy that probably is not the most popular character in One Piece. Definitely effective villain here. Definitely one of those who is after power within the world government. He is not a nice person, ambitious and mean-spirited. So yeah, that type of person, not necessarily brilliant or competent, but ambitious. And that's a dangerous kind of person. You'll encounter some of those sometimes. And of course, this dude becomes the leader of the CP9, which is even scarier. So these ambitious people often do claw their way into positions of power, unfortunately, which introduces a whole lot of corruption into organizations like the world government. Corruption and manipulation, destruction, harming of innocence, all to accomplish their goal in the name of strength and justice. And so we see that Tom is framed essentially by Spandam in this moment, in this flashback. There's also an interesting sort of fear here, I think, the fear of others holding power. And when people are afraid, they often do some horrible things. They do some angry, horrible things. And Tom's difference is emphasized. He's a fishman. And so there's another point, I think, that really well done on Oda's part, the emphasis that, hey, Tom is different somehow, and he becomes more suspect because of his difference, and therefore we can't let him have this kind of power. And finally, we also learn how Frankie was injured, how he tries to save Tom in a totally futile gesture of trying to stop the train, and got himself all mangled and eventually became a cyborg. But I do love how this particular flashback moment ends, where you see, in spite of the constant feud between Iceberg and Frankie when they were young apprentices, you see some love there. They are brothers, family once again. It does change in some important ways how we view these characters. And we get some more foe to friend moments. Just love them when you have Chopper saving Iceberg and Polly from the fire, the destruction caused by CP9. It's a way to change the narrative. When you have someone you thought was your enemy, but they do something kind for you, they save your life, this changes the narrative. Everybody was convinced the Straw Hats were villains, that they're evil. Chopper saves them, and that changes everything. So you see past the labels. Suddenly you see the person as a whole. And it really does make a big difference. And the Going Merry in this moment is seemingly going to her grave, but we don't know for sure. I thought that was interesting. We don't. It's not the end, perhaps, for the Going Merry, I think. There's a prediction. Another prediction here. I think the Going Merry is going to be saved. I don't believe that this is the end for our beloved ship. Maybe I'm just like Usopp. I don't know. But I want to see the Going Merry saved, please. So we'll see. At any rate, it is through Iceberg that the Straw Hats learn that Robin was indeed not betraying them, but in fact trying to save them by going with CP9. I thought that was really important. That she is, in fact, this is a sacrifice that she's doing for those she loves. That they showed belief in her, something that she hadn't seen a lot of. Someone believed in her, and this was a beautiful thing. They saw the good in her, and that I just thought was so beautiful and poignant. I just love that she does this as a sacrifice, as a way of showing her love for them and her belief in them. I also thought that there was an interesting aside in that moment about Ohara. I'm not sure what or where or who Ohara is, but I feel like that's an important reference there. I'm sure that maybe in the next arc I'm going to learn more about it, but I'm sure in the future I will. Something to do with Robin's past, though. At any rate, we do see this immense relief and joy among the Straw Hats, knowing that Robin did not betray them. I love that moment when Nami learns it when she initially kind of faints, and then she puts aside everything for their friend. With their faith in her, they're going to conquer. They're going to do the impossible. They're going to go after her and help her. And this is great because they also get help from their former foes, from Polly and the other shipwrights, from eventually as well the Frankie family. They all come together for this common cause. And we also see this really lovely loyalty among them all, including Sanji as well, going off on his own and showing his cleverness. I love the clever Sanji moments. And he stubbornly follows Robin into danger because he believes in her. Robin leaves them, but not without her love for her adopted family being clear to us, the readers at least, in this softest and saddest smile of I've ever seen on her, as her memories are flashing by of them accepting her. I thought that was just a beautiful moment as well. But we can see on her face in that sad smile the pain of separation from her loved ones. In general, one of the things I just love about One Piece is its ability to combine the goofy and ridiculous with some serious pathos and some highly emotional moments. I love that. This is one of the greatest strengths in my mind of this series. You have, for example, the silliness of Sanji's note. What a goofy note. It's like, Nami, read this, and a giant arrow and everything else. I thought that was fun. You also have Luffy and Zoro being stuck, literally stuck, okay? Maybe it's a good metaphor as well for where the Straw Hats are. And previous to this, not knowing that Robin was actually not betraying them. They feel stuck as a family. But learning that Robin was in fact true to them, that she was sacrificing for them, lends them strength. I just love that. And also in the face of overwhelming force, not just CP9, but you see it embodied in nature, in the Aqua Laguna, this vast threat that is coming. Okay? This is overwhelming force here. The Straw Hats find strength in this moment, in unity, and in shared love, and also with help from their new friends, such as Polly's ropes, which come in really handy to help Luffy and Zoro and the others in that moment of crisis. I just love it when the lovable dorks of the Straw Hat crew come together to defy the odds, and I feel like that is what's being set up here in this arc. But importantly, with help from their friends, including Kokoro, giving them access to the Rocket Man, which is tuned up by Iceberg as well, and you bring together all these former foes. Really great moment where the Straw Hats, the Gallilaw crew, and the Frankie family all join hands here. And Luffy recognizes and he respects their loyalty. And we get some really cool moments near the end of this arc as well. Some real heroism, some stealth from Sanji, for example, aboard the Puffing Tom where he's been a stowaway. And of course, it's on its way to Enies Lobby to deliver the prisoners, including Robin. He does free Usopp and Frankie for a moment at least, working together to get to Robin. Really good stuff. And the rest of the Straw Hats, of course, are also in pursuit, and they're new allies as well. And they take on the impossible. They defy the odds. It's a really nice moment, I felt, when Zoro, over the transponder, warns Sanji, hey, you're up against some really big odds. And you can see that these two who are always at odds, that there's some love there, that they are brothers, that they care for each other. And Sanji kind of teases Zoro for worrying about him. I love that moment. That was really good stuff. Also, I felt that when Sanji learns of Robin's sacrifice, he resolves to give everything to save her. And you find also great moment. I love this Usopp moment. The return of Usopp. He initially, you see him kind of in shame, turning away. I'm not part of you guys anymore. Ta-ta. But he comes back as Sniper King. The return of the Sniper King. I love it. This allows him in his own storytelling way. Yes, it's Usopp telling a story, putting forward a narrative, pretending, which is the Usopp thing to do. It allows him to set aside his pain. It allows him to set aside the quarrel for something that he sees in that moment is way more important, which is to save his friend. So his loyalty beats out his shame. His courage wins over his instinct to run away. All of the Straw Hats step up in this moment. Some really good stuff here. Usopp, he tells Robin that Straw Hats would follow her to hell. Great moment. He shows her their loyalty and his loyalty as well to them, because he speaks well of them in this moment. Even though there's this rift, he sets it aside and he says, Luffy would never give up on you. Sanji defeats the weird ramen noodle guy, okay? Using knives, by the way, using his hands, I guess because he's in the kitchen. So we make an exception here, and it's a culinary battle of a sort. So that was a cool moment. Zoro slices a bunch of train cars in half and also defeats Captain T-Bone. Now, Captain T-Bone is one of those, he's working for, the side of the government, but he's not evil. He's actually in spite of appearances, he's actually a pretty noble guy. He seems like a genuine, decent person. But he is defeated by Zoro in that moment. And of course, Frankie does his part too, defeating the Weasel guy. So everybody's working together. This is really great stuff. But they're up against the overpowered CP9, and ultimately their utilitarian strongman argument here wins the day, which is sacrifice one for the good of the many. And we know who needs to go. We know, because we're in charge. We know who needs to go. And we have the power to do it. And they do indeed, in this moment, have the power. Even Usopp's heroism in running away with Robin in tow, his instinct to run away comes in handy sometimes. It really does. You also have Frankie's noble sacrifice. Even these things are not enough. This really does end in defeat. This is a kind of an Empire Strikes Back moment here in this arc. I can't wait to get to Return of the Jedi. Hopefully, in the next arc, in the Enies Lobby and post Enies Lobby arcs, I'm hoping, but we shall see. But I thought this was really effective. And the important thing is that there is still hope, because the Straw Hats are coming together. We still have faith. They still have faith. Despite his fight with Luffy, Usopp tells Robin to have faith in their beloved leader. This sliver of hope is going up against the power of CP9 and the world government. The relentless belief of the world government and CP9 that they are right, they are on the side of justice, and their confidence that they can manipulate Robin through the trauma of her past. This is what the Straw Hats are up against, because Robin will sacrifice herself in order to save the others. So this is a really powerful moment here at the end of this arc. We are headed toward Enies Lobby, which is called the Nightless Island. But I do think that it promises, in spite of being called the Nightless Island, to be a place of nightmares. We shall see. I do hope and I do believe, though, that the Straw Hats are going to find not only the will but the ability to overcome all this somehow. They are up against the impossible here. But we shall see what happens. I've gone on so long with this. I just had so much to say. I'm glad at this moment that I'm splitting this into 2 videos, though. But I will be picking up the second half here of the Water 7 saga with much anticipation, some dread, and hope as well. And that is it for me for now. Until next time.